So, more than you ever wanted to know about nonchalance. Maybe you don't want to know anything at all about nonchalance. You could approach it that way, nonchalantly, as they might say. Let's begin with some definitions and clear the deck, and then I'm going to talk about 13 ways nonchalance is a virtue, and I'm going to do it quickly. Nonchalance is like a weaned child right after they've been fed. You've seen those babies, right? Right after they've nursed. At the end of the weaning time, Toby and Darla gave me a phrase for that child, one I'd never heard, and the phrase is milk drunk. The kid is just milk drunk. Happy, contented, not hungry, completed, filled, contented. I can't say that I've ever really noticed this language in Psalm 131 before. I don't know how many of you have, like a weaned child. A child who is filled and not crying. Of course, I'm so tempted to talk about God as the mother, the nursing mother, who is sucked dry by this whole experience. But I'm not going to go there. I'm going to stick on this side, on the human side of the consideration, that nonchalance is that kind of secure, happy completion which only comes for that minute or time after which we were hungry and then were fed. That last minute until we get hungry again, or until mom comes back from Pilates. Nonchalance is the confidence that you don't have to do anything, or be anything, or fix anything, and that still everything will be okay. It is a form of settled, ample, full completion, which of course can only exist in the moment. Otherwise, we'd already be in heaven, and guess what? We're not. I dare say most of us experience that kind of grace a couple times a year, and would like to experience it a couple times a day. Nonchalance may be a spiritual practice. It is the refusal to worry. I've never been convinced of the value of worry. Why? Because it has a terrible track record. Worry has a terrible, terrible track record. It does not produce. If you put a dollar value on your time, worry would be the one thing that would keep you in the red, right? It's such a waste of time. I can't imagine a time when worrying about something has done a damn thing to fix it. The great theologian Paul Ricoeur has other language for nonchalance, or this space for grace. He calls it a second naivete, the one that replaces the first naivete, the milk drunk phase. You can go back to it, but long, long, long after you've been weaned. Word sleuthing may help you too. Chalance in the English comes from the word client or customer. Chalance is that way of treating everybody, including yourself, as a client or a customer, one who pays, one who is in contract form. As in that great, if scary, marital advice. I'm sure you've heard it from your marriage therapists. Not that any of you need marriage therapists. You are to treat your partner as your best paying client. Oh dear. Sounds like fun, right? And also it implies never treat your partner like the one you want to love you more than he or she does, or give you more than he or she does. Never get into that contractual arrangement with your partner. Just stay milk drunk somehow. A customer, you've often felt like a customer, I think, where your boss, you don't say anything to your boss, because if you do say something to your boss, you might not any longer be his or her customer. You keep quiet. Repression is very much the kind of dialogue that prevails between clients and customers. You ask nothing from them but what they've contracted to give, and you give them nothing in return. In a way, those kind of client-customer relations are the opposite of primal security, aren't they? You better produce, or you don't have me around anymore. We often find that nonchalance, then, is the opposite of treating people like customers or clients. You treat them as if they don't owe you anything, and as if you don't owe them anything, and that clears the space for something like grace. One of you saw the topic of nonchalance, don't worry, I won't name, on the website, that's what I was going to preach about on Sunday, and sent me a 6-page, single-spaced screed about how this was only a sophisticated way for me telling her that I wasn't going to care about her or him anymore. That saying the virtue of nonchalance was a high-stakes excuse for telling people just not to care about people who have become too obnoxious to care about. It was so sarcastic, and it almost broke my heart to the point that I was going to write another sermon. This person feels so deeply uncared for, and that he or she has to deserve caring, right? Client, customer, deserve it. That he or she couldn't even stand the idea that there was a place in the world for nonchalance, or the undeserved, the unmerited, the thing you don't have to buy, the part of you you don't have to sell. So see if any of these ways of talking about nonchalance makes you angrier or more in need of bartering for love, or more capable of living in that place of undeserved grace. That's where I'm trying to go. So nonchalance is first getting the right words down for our trouble. What is the name of the trouble? Poets help us always. Elizabeth Alexander says that in her life, the trouble is, quote, the cold wind of generational winds all around us, stinging us, biting our face, and making us cold. I think some of us know about generational winds of change. I think Judson knows a lot about those right about now. We're not milk drunk. We're scared of getting colder. And what we want to do is get warmer. Christopher Fry, the poet, in another expression of helping us find the right words for our trouble, in part 2 of The Ladies Not for Burning, Fry says, speaking for God, I gave you mystery and paradox, but all you wanted was cause and effect. That's a trouble. It's a trouble. And when we are being chalant, as opposed to nonchalant, what do? What's the reason? Who did it? Who's to blame? Let's assign the blame and then move it off our table. Octavio Paz speaks of the nonchalant in these poetic words, the way water hollows stone. It takes water forever to hollow stone. Some of us are reaching for that kind of patience, and the only way to achieve it is by becoming more nonchalant about the time that water will take in hollowing out stone. Another, and these are going to be very not organized. Cause and effect, you're not going to get. Mystery and paradox, you are. Is nonchalance easy but not simple? Or is it simple but not easy? Someone said that the best way to find peace, especially when you're very anxious, is to simply turn the dial on the radio station to another station. It's that simple, it's that easy, and yet our disbelief that peace could be so close by, or that God could be so interested in feeding us through and to a sense of completion, makes us feel that it is neither easy nor simple. How many times this week have you said that? This is not easy for me. Or this is hard for me. This is complex. There are complex factors here. Almost every time we say that, we bow to the world in which we're hungry, as opposed to leaning into the world where we are fed. Nonchalance also, point 3, I'm going to move. Nonchalance involves us in what I'm going to call the poetics of procrastination. You could call that just patience, but I like to give it a fancier word. Some things do resolve in time, like that pimple under your eye that's been there for 3 months. Like pimples, you shouldn't pick at them. Nonchalance is practicing the poetics of procrastination. Nonchalance is finding the time to look at something beautiful, like what another poet called fireflies texting. That's how they communicate. That's a scientific fact. They text signals to each other. If you have yet to see a firefly this summer, please hasten. Go fast to slow down and find them. Or 5, the lovely light rain that came this morning, making it unnecessary to water the garden. That took no effort. It was a gift. Nonchalance allows you to receive a gift. Or collecting beach glass. Have you ever noticed how useless beach glass is? Martha Stewart seems to think it's a great color, and she loves the cobalt color, and I'm with her. Collecting things on the beach is so useless, and yet I don't think I've ever seen a bathroom that wasn't filled with beach glass or shells or both. Or yesterday, speaking of Anne James as a distinguished, refined woman who fully owned herself. How do you fully own yourself? You own all the parts of yourself, the great ones and the not so great ones. And you think, wow, what an accomplishment to live a life 79 years and fully own yourself, especially if you come from North Carolina, where people love to own people, or used to. Or on Thursday, being able to sit in Margaret Wright's, many of you know Margaret as one of our phenomenal members whom we haven't seen for many years now because she's housebound, living with her daughter in Jersey. Another of our members, Kathy Huber, made a video of Margaret that is just stunning. And Margaret sings one of her very, very best songs, and it's great quality audio and video. And one of her best songs is, "The secret of life is enjoying the passage of time." She sings it so pretty, to the point that while everything in you is wondering, oh my God, what's the Lincoln Tunnel going to be like when I got to get out of here? And you just can't help but forget about the Lincoln Tunnel. Now that's nonchalance. We will be getting a copy of the video to see much, much more of Margaret when it's fully edited. Rethel's got a great piece in it. We see Carl Garland in it. We see Al Carmine's leading parties and singing all these great songs and making jokes. And Laurie and Howard Moody are in it in their 1951 road trip across the country. The car is a stitch. It's just so good. You're going to see it. Nonchalance is looking out at your unfinished summer garden and saying, I've got to get those brambles out of there. I've got to get those brambles out of there. And deciding you're not going to do that at all. That you're going to learn to live with the weeds. Just learn to live with the weeds. Because that's what you got to do to deal with people too. Learn to live with those who are flowering and those who ain't. Or, number 10, Bill Stabile, I think you're in here. What Bill did yesterday with these white flowers and what he's doing right now for no good reason except that he loves it. He's redoing, we call it musical office. He's redoing our office, and you should see the designs. Next time you come downstairs to the office, you're going to see a place that has really cleaned up its act and has places to put things. That's going to be phenomenal. And Bill is just doing this because he effervesces design. And we don't pay him very well for it at all. In fact, we don't pay him at all. To fix those white lilies just about to open for Anne's service, and to do it over and over and over and over again. Nonchalance is seeing the beauty, just seeing it, and remembering to thank people for it too. And saying goodbye to people. We are going through a really chalant kind of time around here. We have to say goodbye to Michael Conley. We've already said goodbye to people like Doug and Lewis and Arthur and Flavia. Angad Bala is leaving us for California. I don't think anybody knows how much of the great organizational work around here is done by Angad Bala, who is leaving with his wife to go to California. You know, when Jean Montreville was homeless after Sandy, you know whose couch he slept on for 18 months? Angad Bala. What are we going to do without him? Mackie and Nick, Ward and Sue, Henry Schoenfeld has gone and fallen in love and is moving to Boston. He's going to preach next Sunday. It's a good thing, too. He owes us for doing this to us. The Brissats, moving out to California. Prabhu getting ordained and moving to Farmingdale. Eric Jackson already in New Hampshire. I'm preaching at his installation September 11th. That means he's not coming back. And of course, Anne James. And it's not just Judson, it's the woman that we've played tennis with all these years in New York has cancer in both of her kidneys and is going to die soon. All of a sudden, after beating us pretty good at tennis just a couple weeks ago. So how do you behave in a nonchalant way about your losses? How do you say goodbye without worrying it? How do you remain appreciative for the people who have been in your life and then walk out on you? I know you've all experienced this. And I think it has to do with that relationship between gravity and air that's in the second text that Amy Butler talks about. Gravity is the force that holds you to the ground, and sometimes you can get ground down by the ground, can't you? The obligations to feed the child, the obligations to wean the child, the obligations to wean the grown child, the obligations to feed the hungry, the obligations to tell the banks that they just can't have that much money, that they have plenty. You can get ground down by the ground. But when you decide to fly, you're making that nonchalant decision to do something that you really weren't meant to do. You're a walker, not a flyer. You're a human, not a bird. If you just relax, when you let go, everything will go better. If you just relax, somebody and something will catch you. if you just relax into jumping and being caught, gravity on the earth and air in the sky, you will be held to the earth while flying over it, every now and then in a nonchalance that resembles peace.